Hey everyone, Brandon here. In this video, I'd like to share with you some thoughts on membership plans. These plans are starting to become more common in the industry, and over the last year or so, we've learned a good bit on how we think you can set up these plans to be successful. Now, I won't tell you that we have all the answers in this video, but I think you'll find that whether you're about to start a plan or maybe you have a plan and want to think about making some changes or whether it's effective or not, you'll find some good information in this video. Why are we talking about membership plans? Well, they really can be an innovative solution for those patients without dental insurance. Now, as job trends change, such as the increase in the gig economy, we may have more people that are looking for what I'll call a direct relationship with their dentist, and they might forego employee-sponsored coverage at that point. But right now, that's not where we are as an industry. The increase in, or the people rather, that are receiving dental insurance benefits through their employer, I don't believe it's ever been higher. Long term, that could change. But right now, for all intents and purposes, these plans are really directed to those without dental insurance. And these plans may improve patient loyalty. So that's a reason all by itself to think about having a membership plan. It's just like an airline's mile program or a hotel loyalty program. Gets us thinking about our loyalty and our allegiance to the brand. Now, based on our very unofficial research, we think about 25% of practices on the market now offer a membership plan. We don't see them necessarily in more experienced practices, such as some of the boomer practices, but among the millennial owner base in particular, we're starting to see these plans pop up. Now, at 25%, that means that these plans will soon become mainstream and maybe be expected by patients. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to need to have a plan, but it needs to mean that you're thinking about it. And if you don't have a plan, that's because you've strategically decided that it doesn't make sense for your practice. And a big reason we want to talk about membership plans, we're seeing some heartburn in the space. We're seeing that we have some of our clients and some other folks that we're talking to that aren't necessarily seeing profitability on their plans. Now, this is difficult to measure explicitly because some of the limitations in practice management software and financial reporting, but I think some practices know that ever since they changed their membership plan, for example, their financial results have went in a different direction. So we want to talk about that, some ideas we have around that. And then finally, one reason to really dive into membership plans is that these are not a one-size-fits-all solution. Membership plan can be a pretty strategic initiative for your practice. So copying the practice next door, we're just taking a solution from a consultant or a software company might not be in the best interest of your practice. Now, as we unpack this topic, we're going to dive into a lot of information, and you can group it in a couple of different categories. So that's what we'll take an overview look at here right now. We're going to walk through picking the right plan type. This includes understanding the plan type that's best for your brand position, because there are different types of plans out there. Considering the ideal patient for your membership plan, which may or may not be the same as your overall ideal patient for your practice. Understanding some things you need to know about demographics and how that is really impacting membership plans. Pricing them for profitability. As I was saying a moment ago, we think this is an area of heartburn across the industry. We think most plans that we review probably weren't priced for profitability. So we'll review how to establish pricing in terms that we believe are most appropriate to provide great value to your patients, but ensure adequate profitability on your side. Administration. These plans can be complex. They come with new workflows, new marketing, new training for your team, impact compensation. So we're going to look at those items and we'll give you some best practices that you could implement in your practice to make sure that that complexity stays reasonable, have a streamlined approach. And then timing. We believe it's critical with these plans to update them and communicate them to your patients at the right time of the year. And something we notice across the industry when we're talking about membership plans or PPO is that dental practice owners don't always necessarily think about timing that makes sense on the patient side and when to communicate some updates with your patients to maximize your success. So we'll go through that. I'm going to start high level. I'm going to call finding inspiration, backing up a little bit and say, why are we talking about membership plans? Where did they come from? What other industries can we look at to draw inspiration? And sometimes, and I think this is the case with membership plans, we do want to look beyond just dentistry. So we'll walk through that here. You could say that dental membership plans are somewhat of a hybrid between insurance and what I'll call a pure subscription. For a pure subscription, I'm referring to something like Netflix or your Sirius XM radio, or your gym membership maybe, like something we think of as a more pure subscription. I don't think historically we really thought of dental as a subscription model. So we're trying to create a hybrid here. I want to take a moment to look at subscriptions and some of the characteristics. So I'm going to, again, in my head, think of Netflix. Customers of Netflix or other subscriptions, they pay a consistent monthly price for consumption in what I'll call spurts. And what I mean by spurts is that if you have Netflix, if you're like me, you don't necessarily watch it every day. But when you do watch it, such as when the weather's really crummy outside, you might watch a lot of it. So we have a mechanism where I pay consistently of $20 a month, but I use the product very inconsistently and I use it in spurts. Also, subscriptions have a characteristic of they're designed to have high utilization. Typically in a subscription, again, I'll use Netflix. Netflix doesn't really incur any variable costs when I use the product. They've made a movie and they spent $100 million to make that movie. Whether I watch it 0 times, 1 time, or 100 times, it doesn't change the cost of making that movie. So Netflix and most subscriptions are designed to have high utilization. And they point out to me that for my low monthly subscription, I can watch my favorite movie 100 times if I like to in order to have a really high value. We're going to hang on to that for a moment, just that concept. Now let's look at insurance. As I said, I think there's some inspiration here about how people have engaged in the PPO dental insurance market. In that model too, the customer pays a monthly consistent premium, and then they quote unquote enjoy the value in spurts, whether that's 2 times a year for a hygiene visit, maybe I have a hygiene visit and I need a crown in there. But the point is similar to subscription. I pay a flat monthly premium. I can enjoy value in spurts, again, 2 times a year hygiene, and it's similar to a subscription. Where it differs, though, where insurance differs significantly from subscriptions, is insurance as a product is designed to have a low utilization. Think about any insurance product you have. You really don't want to use it. You don't want to use your home or your auto insurance, surely not your life insurance. This right here is one of the things that makes PPO dental insurance already different than other forms of insurance. As we know, it's not really insurance. It's somewhat its own membership plan But instead of with your practice, it's Delta Dental's membership plan or Blue Cross's membership plan. With insurance, and this is where the dental product insurance is similar to car insurance or other insurance, customers pay for the insurance separate from the enjoyment of the product or the service. So contrast with Netflix. I pay Netflix and I use Netflix product. With insurance, I pay Allstate to buy a Toyota. I pay Delta to go to ABC Family Dental. Just pointing out here that insurance isn't a pure play in terms of crafting a membership plan for your dental practice. We modeled exactly off of insurance, but we're creating a hybrid here between a pure subscription like a Netflix, dental insurance, other types of insurance, trying to create something that makes sense for the characteristics of dental. We're going to use this big picture as we work through more of the details now on how to think about your plans. So I want to get into different types of plans, the way that we understand the market. You may or may not be aware of some of the different types of plans that are out there, and this will give you a good overview. First, there's what we call the discount plan. This is the plan that is used by Aspen Dental as an example. And under this plan design, the patient pays a nominal fee, and I'm going to call this $99 a year or less. In the case of Aspen, it's only $39 a year. And in exchange for that, the patient gets to enjoy price discounts and maybe free exams and x-rays, which are positioned as loss leaders. They do not get to enjoy free hygiene visits as part of this. And this demographic, at least this is our belief, is likely not to visit the dentist on a regular basis. These plans are not designed for people visiting the dentist every 6 months, but these plans are designed to establish some allegiance with the patient that maybe only comes into the office when it hurts. Maybe that's once a year, maybe it's every other year, maybe it's only every 3 years. So these are people that might be inactive in your practice software right now because they haven't been in within 18 months, but they would think of you as their dentist. And having a discount plan might establish an even stronger tether between you and that patient. We don't see this plan a lot at Tuatera. As I said, this plan is used by Aspen. At least anecdotally, this plan seems to be used by more DSOs and less by private practice owners. What we see in more private practice owners is what we'll call the prevention or the wellness plan. Again, with our very unofficial market research, we believe this is the most common plan. This plan design provides the patient typically with 2 visits a year, 2 cleanings, 2 exams, their x-rays, and then they get a restorative discount percentage if they need anything. This is the plan that's trying to act similar to how PPO insurance works for those that have it. The price of these plans is often around $30 to $60 a month. We're going to get into that more specifically here in a little bit. And then kids plans are prevention in nature, just designed for children. So same concept. Often there's a lower price because the cost of the cleanings and the exams are less, but maybe it also includes sealants and fluoride. But again, it's a prevention plan. And then we see the perio plan. And for us at Tuatera, we pull this out separately from a prevention plan. It's similar to a prevention plan, but with up to, say, 4 annual visits for those that are in a perio maintenance program. The reason that we pull this out is that we see practices using really large discounts on these perio programs, and we believe most practices should be going the other way. We understand why dental owners are using those big discounts, and that's part of the profitability challenges that we see in the industry. It's our philosophy that patients with periodontal disease really need to be anchored to what will happen both to their health and their finances if they fail to take preventative action. So in contrast to, say, a prevention plan, it can be difficult, the way that dental disease manifests itself, it can be difficult for your common person to appreciate that they could go from feeling good to having a cavity, and that's the purpose of a prevention plan, is really staying on top of the things that even you can't feel, and that only a dentist can do that, or their hygienist. And that's the point of a prevention program, is giving you a nice incentive to take care of yourself under philosophy of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But with perio, these patients have been educated, or should have been educated, that they now have a disease, and that'll create some challenges down the road with, say, tooth loss. And in the event that happens, they'll be looking at extractions and implants and the financial impact of that. So staying on top of their perio now allows them to prevent that. So for us, if you're offering, say, a 20% discount on a prevention plan, your perio program should be no more than that, and maybe should even be less at 10 to 15%. What we see in a lot of cases, though, is we see practices giving steeper discounts on perio. And we believe the thought is that patients have probably gotten themselves into that situation because they need a strong financial incentive. And we really appreciate what dentists are trying to do there. But we think, again, that that's causing some financial difficulties in the practice, because those folks have to be enticed with such a low price or such a steep discount. It's eroding profitability in the practice. So for us at Tuatera, these are the three types of plans. Again, a discount plan that provides really just price discounts for a nominal fee. Your core prevention wellness program, which I think is what most of us think of when we think of a membership program, and that includes programs designed for children. And then the third one is the perio program, that even though it is like a prevention program, we think it is different enough to be called out separately if you're going to use one of these and have a little bit different economics. It is not just a prevention program times two. Now that we reviewed the types of plans from that perspective, there's another perspective that we would like to look at, and that's your brand position. Now, if this is new to you, the brand position is a real core concept of the Tuatera growth framework that helps practice owners think about how to arrange or integrate various strategic initiatives in their practice so that it really strengthens and unifies their brand and their value proposition to patients. So, and for us, those three plan types I just showed you, the type of plan you offer between a discount and a prevention plan, and whether or not you offer, I'll call the versions here of a kids plan and a perio plan, we really think that should be driven by your brand position. So here is our brand position framework. The 5 brand position types that we have range from economy at the lower end to the luxury at the higher end. As you'll see if you watch any of our brand position materials, this is not about being better or worse. It's just a different value proposition equation to customers. We were, for the most part, a moment ago, just talking about or I want to talk about the regular plan, your core plan. So whether you offer a discount plan or a prevention program. As you see from the chart, if you're an economy or an essential position, which we believe correlates with patients that maybe don't come regularly to the dentist, but only come when something is hurting, that's probably more of a discount plan is appropriate. If your goal, however, is to bring patients in every 6 months and keep them healthy, then that's probably a prevention program. We're going to talk in a few more slides about whether perio or kids is something you should consider. Before that, in case you haven't seen our brand position in detail, I want to use some hotels here and just take a quick look at it so you can think about what kind of brand position am I thinking about your membership plan. So if you thought of your dental practice as a hotel, I'll have some categories coming in here. So how we might think about this is Super 8 Motel is your economy brand. That's the basics. That's going to be a discount plan. Those are going to be folks that are going to come to the dentist when something hurts. And if you want to establish some more loyalty with those patients, you probably want to use a simple discount plan. In the top right corner, we have the Ritz-Carlton. We have the luxury experience. Those are likely going to be folks that value prevention, and they will pay to prevent future issues down the road. You can even throw on additional add-ons to your membership plan, but you're going to want to be in a prevention plan if you're in a luxury or premium. In the middle with the family, we'll talk about this more in a minute, where you see some of those core brands like Holiday Inn and Hampton. The family brand position is typically the most complicated because you are probably trying to see everybody in the family, the kids, the parents, prevention, the periodontal disease. So that's where things get a little more complex, but we'll take a look again at our brand position in a moment. We're going to focus for the most part on the rest of this video. Is really going to focus on the prevention plans. As we said earlier, that's what we see most private practices pursuing. They're more complicated than a discount plan. Discount plan is very straightforward. Patient pays $59 a year and they get 10% off your UCR. Pretty straightforward. Prevention plans, where you have to put a little more strategic effort into ensuring that you have the plan set up optimally. Now, as I hinted at, we believe many of the plans on the market today that we review in our current client base and prospects we talk to, that they're too low price, leading to unprofitability. A very common price point that we see is around $30, maybe $40 a month, and we think that's too low based on how we understand most practices UCR. Now, we believe, as far as we know, again, our research is very unofficial, a lot of the rationale for these low prices is what patients or even employers might pay for monthly PPO insurance. The problem with anchoring with PPO insurance, as I said at the start of this, we don't want to use insurance, and we don't plan on necessarily using insurance. And even though dental insurance is not real insurance, because of the way it's presented, even being called insurance and being disconnected from the place that will actually purchase the service, utilization still tends to be lower. Okay, across the industry, and many dental practice owners we know are challenged by PPO and challenged by some of the economics, and some states are pursuing regulation, and a lot of that has to do with the profits that PPO companies keep because the utilization is low. But what can happen in your dental practice is when you price something at, say, $30 a month, expecting the low utilization that's associated with an insurance product, and then you end up with high utilization, you're going to end up upside down on that. And we think this is happening more often than not, and I'm going to walk you through that, why that's happening in just a moment. As I said a moment ago, even though there are some great software platform companies out there, and we, at this point, as with this market still evolving, we do not have a particularly strong position on the matter right now, you don't want to take the advice on the price of your plan from that company. This is a major strategic, or could be a major strategic area. You want to consider your brand position and the goals of your plan and your marketing, and that's beyond the scope of what you can expect from a software platform company. You especially don't want to take that advice from a company that's paid a percentage of each sign-up or paid on volume of sign-ups instead of fixed rate. Now, we don't necessarily have a preference again at this point, whether you pay a percentage or you pay a fixed rate. Typically speaking, in those arrangements, the more customers you have sign up, the more you're going to want to be at a fixed rate. What you just need to be cognizant of is that if the company is paid based on volume, then they're going to have an incentive for you to push your price down so you can get more signups. And in most cases with the prevention plan, we believe pushing that price down will lead to profitability issues. So for us at Tuatera, we think you should price your membership plan like a true subscription. And we believe that true subscriptions are designed expecting high utilization, and that instead of $30 a month, you're probably going to want to be priced at more like $50 a month. And it's okay that the only people signing up for your plan expect to use the benefits. That creates alignment between you and them, and it leads to the best outcomes for everyone, even if it doesn't result in as many signups. As I was saying on the second point, your goal is not necessarily volume signups, which might be the software companies. Your goal is to take care of patients consistent with your brand strategy and ensure adequate profitability by doing so. And finally, on this issue, we do not recommend thinking of restorative procedures as loss leaders. This is a mindset sometimes we see in PPO participation, where it can be difficult to feel you're earning an adequate profitability on hygiene. And that sometimes it feels that the only place a practice makes any money or profitability in PPO is when they do a restorative procedure like a crown. We don't want to do that with these plans. Most practice owners that we talk to are frustrated by the very experience that I just described because it creates misalignment. Dentists would like to take care of their patients and help them be healthy. It can be difficult to make profit from PPO products doing that. You end up, fixing what's broken instead of preventing in the first place. We don't want to bring that philosophy into your prevention plan. So focus on creating a plan that adds a lot of value to those that value prevention with you so you can create that alignment. Do not count on restorative procedures to offset plan discounts. Do not use a prevention plan like a loss leader. If you recall from the discount plan, or if you go and you look at Aspen's plan, you can have a loss leader aspect in a discount plan. Aspen, it appears, has chosen to use their doctor exam as a loss leader. Part of the rationale might simply be that this plan is designed to be utilized by folks when something hurts. They're going to need to do a doctor exam anyway in order to get that issue diagnosed and lead to the restorative. So they don't really think they're giving up much by having that quote-unquote loss leader in there. But that is not how you'd want to treat a hygiene-based prevention plan. When establishing a membership plan, it's really important to ask yourself, what is the purpose of your plan? Again, this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. You do not want to just copy your competitor's plan and throw it up on your website without thinking through what you're really trying to accomplish. Now, we're talking about prevention membership plans here. And in many cases, and we'll unpack this in a second, We don't necessarily believe that you can utilize a prevention membership plan to bring in your ideal patient, but perhaps it's a subsegment of patients that you'd like to serve, so you need to be sure that it serves that strategic purpose. Failing to establish the goals around your plan could lead you to bring new patients into the practice that you weren't intending to. For example, if you are a higher end premium or luxury practice, to use the Tuatera brand position framework, you are a Ritz-Carlton of dentistry, but you offer a $49 a year discount plan. Well, you probably will get a bunch of people thinking that's a really good deal, and they'll sit in your chair, but they won't have the financial wherewithal to say yes, or necessarily even the interest or the aligned values to say yes to any of the treatment that you present. And you will spend a lot of time and energy presenting to these people, and it won't have the results that you anticipated, and you'll be upside down on that. That was an extreme example to help you see in your mind what we're talking about here. I want to use a more reasonable example. Like many industries, the target demographic of many dental practices is a 35 to 50-year-old adult, has a good job, stable income, and in many cases has PPO coverage. Whether or not you're in network or out of network is a different story. But typically, patients that have good jobs and high incomes, they have employer-sponsored benefits. So in many cases, that is your target patient base. Your membership plan, however, might be directed, though, towards those that are a little older. We're going to get into the demographics in a moment, but you can see here that if I'm targeting 35 to 50-year-old as my prime ideal patient with a significant lifetime value, that a subsegment of patients might be 50-year-olds and up, that maybe they used to have that good job that I'm talking about and that PPO coverage. They still have access to wealth, so they still have the financial wherewithal to say yes to the procedures that we recommended, including elective procedures. And so maybe the primary purpose of my plan is to retain long-term patients when they retire. So as I was saying a moment ago, if I launch a discount plan, it's probably going to attract working age adults that don't have high incomes or stable jobs. But my goal was to provide a long-term retention plan for patients when they retire. I'm not going to achieve my objectives with that plan. So really getting clear on what you're trying to achieve with your plan will help you determine the type of plan that you should be offering. You talk about some of those other subsegments of patients, such as should you have a perio plan? Or what about a kids plan? Again, the key question here is, are you trying to attract, retain these folks? What are you trying to accomplish strategically? You may have a strong periodontal maintenance program, but not have a periodontal maintenance membership plan. And that's okay. Looking again at our brand position, as I was saying earlier, when you're in the middle, in the family brand position, you're trying to serve a really large section of the market between the kids and parents and average Joe, if you will. There's going to be a good prevalence of periodontal disease in the average, American. And so if you're in a family brand position, there's a good chance you might be offering all three of those plans. It would depend, again, on the kids. What percentage of kids are you looking to serve? If you're accommodating children, but they're not really a core focus, then maybe you don't have a plan for them. But if you believe strategically being a one-stop shop, if you will, for the entire family is critical to your success, then you probably want to have a kids program. If I go to the far right and I'm a luxury brand position, again, using those hotels, I'm the Ritz-Carlton. We've already decided I have a prevention core program, not a discount program. The prevalence of periodontal disease in very affluent individuals tends to decline. Not saying it doesn't exist, but it tends to decline. Also, they would understand the earlier anchoring that I was describing. They would understand at this point, if likely because they're likely more educated, that the way that they would think about their situation at this point is that it could be further damage to their tooth structure, and that's what they'd anchor to versus offering those folks a membership plan. And then finally with kids, when I think about the Ritz-Carlton, that's a place for my wife and I. That's not a place for the children. They don't appreciate that level of luxury yet. So I'm probably not going to have a plan for the kids. You can see as you go into, say, a premium position, maybe a perio program is something you're thinking about, depending if you've carved out a niche or a really strong program there. The kids is probably still unlikely, but maybe you're doing that. And again, as you move into that family position, maybe you're thinking of all three of those. If you keep going to the left to the economy and the essential program or brand positions, those are optional if you went ahead with a prevention program, which would have probably been or would have been a little inconsistent with our framework. So we're not as passionate in the economy and essentials brand. Exactly what you do here for no reason that we don't support many practices in there. But again, you'd want to think about, is that helping you achieve your goals? Beyond the brand position, some other things that you should consider. What percentage of your patients do you want to have on your membership plan? Based on the folks that you're trying to serve, is that maybe 10 or 20%? And then is it worth having this plan if you're below 10% or maybe 100 patients? And I want you to think about the bare minimum. These plans bring cost and complexity and additional work streams to your office. And one of the things that is characteristic of dental is that it's a very high volume industry. The things that you do in your office, you do hundreds, if not thousands of times a year, and you get very efficient at it. When practices don't do things with enough volume, profitability tends to be low. Your membership plan is the same thing. If you have so few patients on your plan that your staff's not familiar with the benefits and it has to be looked up and no one but Mary knows the details, that's probably not going to lead to the outcomes you want, versus being very deliberate and intentional about getting to a minimum critical mass, so then you can have resources in the practice that maybe take ownership of the plan, communications around it makes sense, investing in software makes sense, so on and so forth. So put some thought into what percentage of patients do you want to have on your plan? What's the minimum critical mass that makes this worthwhile? Don't feel right now if you don't have a plan, you just have to launch one because everyone has one. Because they don't. Like I said earlier, it's probably only about 25% right now, and you have some time. So be deliberate with this question. Think about what you'd want your plan to achieve. Now, we're going to jump into detail here about patients without insurance. Spent some time talking about two kinds of plans, discounts versus prevention plans, and talked about working age adults a little bit so far, but really going to dive into this. Again, membership plans right now are really vehicles for patients without insurance. Hopefully long term, as the industry matures, these will be programs that allow us to break the connection with PPO and have a more direct relationship with patients. But today, where we are in the market, it's really those without insurance. And it's really important to understand that there's at least two groups of people without insurance. And you need to be deliberate about which group you're trying to create a plan for, because it's very difficult, if not impossible, to create a plan that attracts both. And those two groups are working age adults or retirees. Working age adults are folks that don't have maybe the type of job that offers employer-sponsored benefits. Maybe they're working part-time. Maybe they're working 2 part-time jobs. Maybe they haven't worked up to a certain level, such as manager. Maybe they're working in a smaller company, like a small business. But their situation is different than retirees. Retirees, especially the current generation of baby boomer retirees, often have a lot of wealth. Retirees tend to think differently as they move on to fixed incomes. They have more time than working age adults. So it's really a different group of people that don't have insurance. As I said a second ago, if you attempt to create a plan that attracts both, it's very problematic. So let's take a deeper look here. Working age adults. I consider myself a working age adult, so I can speak to this one a little bit. When I think about purchasing a membership plan, I might not really be able to count on 2 visits a year because I have a very busy schedule. I've got young children. I'm pulled in a million different directions. Sometimes I might be like, look, it doesn't hurt, so I'm just going to cancel that hygiene appointment. And I know that I can't get in for another 2 or 3 months, but I'm okay with it. This gets even worse if maybe I'm paid hourly. So as I mentioned, some of these folks could be working a part-time job or 2 part-time jobs, and maybe they're not salaried, which means coming to your office, if I come to your office during normal working hours, could also have a high opportunity cost for me, meaning not only do I have to pay you, I also have to lose a few hours of work. So once again, if it's not hurting me, this could be a tough putt. So what I'm likely looking for if I'm in that working age adult is I want a low price because I'm not sure that my utilization is going to be very high. So I'm going to need the practice to bring this down to $30 a month so that even if I went 1 time a year, I'd be okay. But I can't count on 2. The problem is then the retirees. The retirees have time and wealth in many cases, and they will certainly come in for 2 visits a year, if not more. And we have stories of retirees coming in more often than 2 visits a year for what we believe are purely social reasons. Because getting out of the house, getting to the dentist gives them something to do for the day, a lot of people to interact with. So we see that happening. So if you create a plan and you price that low to entice working age adults to sign up for that plan, what you'll end up doing is attracting retirees in spades that sense a bargain. Okay, so let me say this again. If you price your plan at, say, $29, $30 a month in order to entice the working age adult who thinks their utilization might be low, then you are going to be a heck of a bargain for retirees that essentially know they're going to be able to come in for 2 visits because they have all the time in the world. You're going to represent an exceptional value to those folks, and they're going to sign up in droves. As such, it's our belief that if you are interested in catering to working age adults, it's better to use a discount plan. Now, I'm not sure if we have any clients that we support that offer both a discount plan and a prevention plan, but you could. So in this case, if I wanted to attract working age adults and retirees, I'd probably have to have 2 plans. I'd start out with a $59 a year discount plan that if you sign up for that plan, you get 10% off anything you do in the practice, and that's it. For those that are looking for a more robust relationship, we offer our prevention program. With my prevention program, I would assume high utilization, and I'm going to price that at $50 or $60 a month. It's Not necessarily a perfect solution for the working age adults, but because we cannot discriminate against retirees, again, if we craft a plan to entice the working age adults, we believe you're going to end up upside down on that. And let's unpack this further because we believe this is a really important one. Again, I want to be clear, Tuatera has conducted some very unofficial research, and it's possible that the practices we've analyzed are different from you. We think that is unlikely, but consider that my disclaimer. Baby boomers, I think, were the first generation to really be taught to visit the dentist 2 times per year, the first generation to really grow up with employer-sponsored benefits that are now 50 years old, and they'd like to continue that into retirement. So if you've been on a PPO, employer-sponsored plan for the last 20 or 30 years and been to the dentist 2 times per year, that's a pretty ingrained behavior. And now you're interested in a mechanism like a membership plan that can continue to facilitate that for you. We've done some research into workforce participation rates. Again, this is important because so many of us receive our dental coverage from our jobs. Again, that's a trend that could change in the future, but that's the reality today. If you review the information, this is just census information from the U.S. government, you can see there that when folks are younger than 55, the workforce participation is above 80%. And it's pretty consistent between 25 and 55, it's in the low 80s. As people go over 55, it starts to drop precipitously. Now, it doesn't drop from 82 to 35% right away, but it is a pretty steep decline as soon as you go over that 55 years old. That tells us that even people don't fully retire. There's a lot of people that maybe shift into a second career. Maybe they relocate. One spouse stops working, but there's a big change there. And then retirees, if you think about even people that you know, I think it's fair to say you see this happen in retirees, even ones with wealth. When you have lots of time on your hands and you have a fixed income, and whether that fixed income is simple as Social Security or drawing on your investments, it usually starts to change your behavior and you become a little bit more value conscious and you're willing to trade off time for money. And you go to things like the early bird special. When you were a working age adult, you were younger, you wanted to have dinner at 7 p.m. You're willing now to do that at 5 in order to enjoy 20% off your meal. We're going to talk about in a minute how you can leverage that. But you really get value conscious. So as I said a moment ago, if you have a low price plan to attract working age adults, you're going to get found by retirees that have become value conscious and they're going to sign up for that plan. And then finally on this group in particular, as much as we know, again with our very, very unofficial research and not considering all of the state plans that might be out there, we don't believe Medicare covers dental. So for folks transitioning to retirement, they may be transitioning their health insurance to Medicare. They have a gap in dental that membership plans can solve. So our conclusion is that retirees just love membership plans. And we did a sampling of 5 random practices, which we'll show you now, comparing the age of the average patient in these practices to the membership patients and the age of those patients. And these 5 practices, you see them now, go coast to coast, from the West Coast to the East Coast, the Midwest, down to the South, and across the board in terms of PPO and fee-for-service participation. Again, it's not robust. Your practice may be different than this, but based on what we've seen so far and in the data we can pull and the anecdotes of talking to people, we suspect that your situation could look very similar. I want to point out that the median age of the U.S. is about 39 years old. So in the first column, when looking at all patients, about 42 and a half, We would expect that because we were pulling here adult practices, so not really a focus on children. So you would expect the average patient to be, say, 10% over the average, so somewhere between 42 and 45. And in most cases, that's where it was. Practice E is the only one that's not equal to the median age of the US. But notice the second column, that membership plan patients tend to be significantly older than average patients, on average almost 30%. And the percentage difference there really depends on how these practices have utilized their plan and how they've priced them. Practice E and A are probably the purest examples to the presentation that we've been walking through, that they have relatively low-priced membership plans that are attracting a fundamentally different patient, a retiree, compared to their current practice. And that is shifting the demographic makeup of their practice. They're not getting the low utilization that they expect. In many cases, it is hard to pull utilization data. From the data that we've been able to pull, membership plan patients have the highest utilization of any patients in the practice. That is what we would expect. That is on par with a subscription like a Netflix. That is what happens when you have a direct relationship and you actually pay to the company providing the service versus insurance. Some of the practices, C and D, that have a different or a lower percentage, they're using their plans maybe a little more uniquely than we normally expect. But as that percentage increases, there's a good chance that you'll feel more pain in your practice financially unless you've really been deliberate about that. But we think this is a really good example and enough data for most of you to consider, are my membership plan patients a different subsegment of patients than my average patient? We suspect that the answer is yes. One strategic consideration for you, if you analyze your data, and it does appear to be this way, just said a moment ago, retirees love an early bird special. There's a lot of software on the market now that allows you to do online scheduling and other things like that. We think a smart strategy here could be trying to limit membership plan patients to those hard to fill spots in the middle of the day. So think about early bird specials or happy hour specials. You're attempting to retain the prime spots, such as before work, after work, and around lunchtime for your full paying patients. And then you're willing to offer a discount for those that can come in at times when capacity is low, such as an early bird special. I don't believe, nor are we recommending, this has to be a rigid, hard and fast thing, but just more in general of trying to limit. You're trying to use some block scheduling around your membership plans and provide some coaching to your team and establish some rhythm with membership plan patients that are coming in at times that serve your practice. If you're able to utilize membership plan patients to do that, it would help you out financially tremendously. Otherwise, what could be happening is that your membership plan patients could be crowding out your non-membership plan patients, okay? Remember, these folks have already paid for their appointments and they want to use them, and they probably have the time, and they're of an older generation that plans their schedule well in advance. They're going to get their appointments on the books, and that's going to make it harder for your 35 to 50-year-old. So be thinking about some scheduling strategies that you could deploy here. Next, we are going to shift into pricing your plan. So I've already talked a little bit high level about it, and you've heard me say that If you're talking about a prevention program, you're probably not talking $30, but more like $50 to $60. We're going to review that here in more detail. We're also going to talk about discounts and how you're positioning this from your UCR and the codes that you're including in the plan. We're going to dive deeper into that. Now, at Tuatera, we recommend a discount from your UCR of about 10 to 20%. It's beyond the scope of this video, but to the extent you feel you need to offer a higher discount, then you might first considering your lower UCR or lowering your UCR. If you are, another reason to pause here, if you're thinking you have to offer a 30 or 40% discount, then you probably haven't answered strategically enough, who am I trying to attract with this plan? You might be trying to attract, again, or thinking you might want to attract the working age adult that needs a really steep UCR discount. We believe at Tuatera that one of the challenges we have in dentistry is the inconsistent pricing based on the payer, and membership plans can sometimes confound this issue even more. Again, that is beyond the scope here, but that is what can happen with some of these pricing if you get too creative with the discounts. For us and our money, above a 20% discount, and we believe that consumers can start to get skeptical. If you're offering me, for example, a 40 or 50% discount off your normal UCR, then I start to think, well, your UCR is just funny money. Like you just made up those prices, and that erodes trust for me, because I don't believe that people can stay in business profitably and routinely offer 40% off of their normal prices. And also, if you go above 20%, you're starting to write off as much as the PPO companies. And that's where a lot of dentists start to get their heartburn, is when they're starting to write off 25, 30, 33%. So again, we're telling you not to do that. Have confidence when you're setting your discount percentage that these plans are designed for people that are going to use them. People that, like retirees, that they're going to come in 2 times a year and they're going to have the wherewithal to pay what they need. They're thinking more of an early bird special, like they just want to get some extra value and make their dollar go further. You do not need to entice them with steep discounts. We also want you to keep things relatively simple here, okay? So we think that your discounts should be either a uniform in total, okay? So, and I'm talking about restorative discounts right now. So usually with prevention plans, for my $50 a month, I get some covered services, and then I get some discounts on restorative procedures. You can keep it very simple and offer 20% off on all restorative procedures. You might also put your procedures into different categories and give different discounts based on the category or set of procedures, such as, one for cosmetic, one for restorative, one for clear aligner therapy. That's okay to do. What we don't want to see you do is we don't want you to create a complex fee schedule that's like the PPO company. I don't know that there's rhyme or reason to the way that PPO companies come up with their reimbursement schedules, or they're running advanced analytics on what makes them the most money. Don't necessarily know that's in the best interest of the patient. You have a UCR office schedule. You should simply keep that and take a discount percentage off of that. Do not recreate an entire new schedule. Do not use a insurance company schedule or any sort of basis to an insurance company. Stick with your UCR. As an example, bringing that all together, look at our friends at Aspen. For the record, I tend to think if you know what you're doing to the extent you have 1,000 locations or more, you're doing something right here, okay? So regardless what you think about Aspen, our videos drawn on them from time to time for examples, because we think it really can give you some good insight into how to set some of these things up. Aspen does have a discount plan, so you'll notice that the top 2 categories of exams and x-rays are 100%. You wouldn't have that under a prevention plan. What I want to demonstrate here is how they've grouped procedures into different discounts, and you do not have to have them the same. A common one at the bottom is probably clear aligners or Invisalign, or elective procedures in general. Remember, these are prevention programs. Those might be considered elective procedures. All things being equal, we probably wouldn't give as big a discount on an elective procedure like clear aligners as we would on hygiene. Put the link there of Aspen Dental's plan if you want to take a look how they do it. See some of the fine print and things like that they put on the plan as well. You can feel free to check out that link. Now we'll get into how to price your prevention plan. So a moment ago, we were just talking about, again, the discount percentage that you provide on the non-covered services, procedures, and the elective procedures. Now we're going to talk about how do you actually price this program. You've heard me talking about a lot of people maybe pricing at $30 when that should be $50. We're going to walk through the math of how you can think about how to price your plan. First thing you're going to do is you're going to calculate the average UCR value of your covered services. You're going to utilize what we call an inherent discount of 10 to 20% on this. So inherent discount means that the patient does not necessarily know what discount is factored in on the covered services. So when we talk about restorative procedures, it's very clear that you're offering, say, a 10 or 20% discount. But typically for the core purchase of the membership plan, you're going to advertise the dollar savings and not the percentage savings. Typically, if you are able to advertise dollars and you're talking over $100, that's going to be better than talking about percentages. You're not able to do that on the restorative side because we don't know what people will need, but we're able to do that on the prevention side. So again, when I say the inherent discount, once you calculate the UCR, you're going to have to decide how much of a discount you want patients to have on those services. They're not necessarily going to know that because you're going to talk about the dollar savings, but it is part of our equation. And then we're simply going to divide the calculated UCR less our discount by 12 and round it up for marketing purposes so we can put it on our website, and we can use psychological pricing mechanisms to entice people to sign up for the programs. Here is a quick example of a simple prevention program, for example, that included 2 prophies a year and 2 doctor exams and 1 x-ray and 2 fluoride treatments. The third column is the UCR for each of those procedures one time. The final right column is those multiplied by their expected frequency. So this plan offers covered services of approximately $723 a year if patients participate in all that it has to offer. This example chooses an inherent discount of 20%. So it's going to offer $144 savings. That works out to an annual price of $578. I divided that by 12 and rounded up to $49. So this is where I mentioned the psychological aspects. My understanding is some of this might be changing as well in the digital age that we live in. When I was a kid, $49.99 and $50 were not the same thing. And every marketer would have told you to price it $49.99. I've been told things are changing there, and now in the digital world, people see that $49.99 is $50, and it's not a big deal. But this is an example where we're thinking, again, these UCRs that I'm displaying, I do not believe they are aggressive. I believe that they're pretty average, at least in total for most practices. And so if I was pricing this plan at $30 a month, I would be offering a 50% write-off, which is more than the PPO companies. We'd be our own worst enemy, and we see that. In this case, we're offering people really great value, $145, for just doing what we think they should do anyway. likely what they've been doing for years, and we're going to advertise that $145 savings. So once again, the reason we call this the inherent discount is our plan might be presented online for $49 a month, and we would say in our marketing that users of the plan can expect to save almost $150 per year relative to our UCR. And that's how we would present the plan. We would not necessarily tell them that it represents 20% off of our UCR. Now we want to take a look at pricing annual versus monthly. In the example that I just gave you, if we back up a minute, you could see that I could price this plan at $49 a month, or I could price it at $575 a year, basically. How should I do that? We're going to go over this now and what Tuatera recommends. Now, this is something that we see is pretty common. We see a lot of plans priced annually. And in talking to dentists, it seems that there's a concern that new patients might sign up for a membership plan, enjoy a comprehensive first visit, make just one monthly payment of $49, and then cancel the plan. So because of that fear, offices with this fear usually price their plan on an annual basis instead of monthly. So using the example I just gave, instead of $49 a month, they might be doing something like $500 a year. Now, we believe at Tuatera the best way to price your membership plan really is monthly. Monthly payments are like both insurance premiums and subscriptions. So remember from the start, I talked about how we're drawing inspiration here. Well, if you think about paying the full year up front, there's really not a lot like that. That's not how insurance premiums work for really any product. Maybe life insurance is the only one. That's not a product I want to be anchored to. But it's not how dental insurance works that has monthly premiums, not how health insurance works that have monthly premiums, and it's not how most of our subscriptions work like a Netflix. So that's its own unique animal here. Some states actually limit the amount that the patient can pay up front. And this is a way to protect patients from paying, say, $500 for an annual plan and then not using it. States are aware that in some cases, or I should just say because of what the economics incentivize, these plans could lead to practices signing up too many patients, making it difficult for patients to have an opportunity to utilize their benefits. So some states limit the amount the patient can pay up front to really the value of the first appointment, and so really makes pricing the plan on an annual basis difficult in the first place. But the real big one for us is that pricing your plan annually will significantly increase the administrative complexity of that plan, and that's what we're going to unpack now. So from an administration standpoint and from a strategic marketing standpoint, we believe that having an annual-based plan has the following disadvantages. Number one is lower affordability. One of the things that's consistent with everything Tuatera is doing, if you've watched our video on patient financing as an example, dentists don't typically have the economic situation of your average American. And it can seem to a dentist, what's the big deal over $550? But for a lot of people, that is a big deal. And so $50 per month is much easier to afford than $550 right now. Now, to be clear, $50 a month is $600 over a full year. So it's more affordable, but it's a higher price in the long run. But what we're focusing on here is affordability. That is the theme in patient financing and credit and the world that we live in today. Annual plans can create what we call a bright line of when my coverage might begin and expire on what could be a hard to remember date. So unless you are offering all of your plans on a January to December basis like PPO, I would have to remember, for example, that my plan resets on September 1st of every year. That might be something that I don't remember, and I expect the practice to remind me, which means the practice has to be notifying all of its patients on different timelines. In addition, it can create some awkward situations where, let's say my plan expires at the end of September, but I came in for what I thought was my second appointment on October 2nd, and I only had one from September to September the prior year. I'm going to likely be upset as a patient if you tell me that I owe you another $550 for that appointment, even though I only received one appointment from my first $550. We believe that annual-based plans are going to create some awkward refund issues for practices that have these. As I said a few minutes ago, we went through that a lot of these plans are attracting retirees, which means, unfortunately, we're going to have practices that lose patients due to passing away and children and spouses closing up their estates and things of that nature. And you're going to get the phone call that's asking for a refund that a father or a mother paid you $550 and they have been unable to use a single visit, and the estate's not that big, and it'd be nice for you to hand that money back. It's our belief that you're going to do it, and so it's really not creating the situation that you might have envisioned where people are signing up and not using their benefits. Much easier in these situations if the patient had been paying $50 per month and the estate simply cancels the plan. Makes it much more difficult to make changes to your plan design. And the reason is once you sell a level of benefits to a patient, you need to honor at a minimum those level of benefits until they expire. Only way to really handle this without mega complexity is having a January through December calendar year. If you have all of your patients on different years, then it just makes it difficult to implement changes unless everybody is going up in their benefits, which again is going to erode your profitability. And the discount percentage that's usually provided in these situations to incentivize people to pay up front is usually much higher than inflation and causes another hit to your profitability. So at the top of this slide under lower affordability, we're comparing $50 a month versus $550 right now. So this is a very common price point where practices would let patients choose between those options. Well, every patient that chooses $550 and then shows up for their 2 appointments, and again, we think that's going to be the predominant situation because the retirees, they're going to enjoy another 10% discount on top of maybe the 20% discount that's inherent already in the program. And it's not worth it on your side because your inflation's only 2 to 3%. So you're losing every time people sign up and take advantage of their benefits because they're saving 10% and you're only picking up 2 to 3. And then finally, and we're going to dive into this one in more detail, you're not insurance. Insurance products are designed not to be utilized, and the patients or the customers don't want to use insurance. I'm hoping not to use my auto insurance as an example. When you price on an annual basis, you're kind of like insurance in that you've now created an incentive for yourself to have low customer service and low utilization by the practice. And you can achieve that by having too many patients, crowding people out, and making it hard to use their benefits, and you lower the overall experience. And that's how we think about insurance. We pay our money to insurance, but like no one would really give insurance a high rating probably because it's insurance and it's inherent in the product that kind of a fact of life. We believe when you price annually, you're setting up an insurance-like situation there, and it's a mismatch and a misalignment from the otherwise high level of customer service you've probably been providing for years. So to continue that theme, in our belief, prevention plans should be designed for high utilization. And one major reason to design your plan with that high utilization is because of the systems that you've probably created around hygiene recall. Over the past few decades, with the prevalence of PPO insurance, practices have established these very strong hygiene recall systems of 90% plus reappointment rates and communication programs and reminding people to come into the practice, because you only get paid if they show up. And we all know that if the hygiene schedule is not full, then the restorative schedule falls apart. So in many practices, this is one of, if not the most critical system, is a strong hygiene recall program. Well, if you price your membership plan low, as I was just saying, then one might argue that you don't really want those folks to come into the office. So now we have a situation where we don't want our membership plan patients maybe to come in more than they have to if we've charged them annually, but we do want our non-membership plan patients to come in, like our traditional PPO patients. So what happens is we're trying to run two different revenue systems, and a business cannot do that. Not without an ungodly level of complexity. You cannot have one group of patients that you're hoping don't come in and another group of patients that you're almost begging to come in. You're not going to be able to do that. What's going to happen in most cases is that your strong hygiene recall systems are going to be applied to your membership plan patients. And these are already patients, as I said, that want to come in and use those benefits because they're getting a good value and they have lots of time. So you're going to end up with extremely high utilization on your prevention plan. So the way to approach these plans is to plan for high utilization and price them accordingly. Do not push the price down low. Keep it higher. Keep your discount lower. Attract people that are going to use these plans. That way you'll have alignment with your non-membership plans, and you can use your strong hygiene recall systems on everybody and don't have to worry about managing two revenue systems. What we just went through is probably the core of prevention programs as far as who we're seeing them attract from a patient standpoint, how to consider them strategically, how to think about the discounts on restorative, how to think about the pricing on covered services, and how to think about your hygiene recall interactions. Going to quickly hit a couple of other best practices based on things that we've seen in the industry. Most of these, again, will erode profitability or increase complexity if you don't follow these best practices. First up are what we call riders. These are things like, if you pay the full price for the first family member, the second family member gets a much reduced price. We do not recommend this. We think about, have you ever traveled on an airplane and you've taken a young child? Once that child's old enough to occupy a seat, you don't get a discount for buying a second ticket. The airline's rationale would be that that child takes up a seat that they could sell to another paying adult. So while it hurts that you've got to pay for multiple tickets in your family, they would have too large of an opportunity cost to sell that at a discount. Same applies here. Again, this is a good example of high utilization versus low utilization. Riders make sense when I'm expecting low utilization, like insurance products. Riders do not make sense in subscriptions, or I should say dental subscriptions, when I expect high utilization. So avoid riders. Annual maximums. These only make sense if you are using an annual plan in terms of your pricing. We don't recommend that in the first place. So we probably wouldn't have these at this point if you're following that recommendation. But let's say you had a monthly subscription, but you wanted to make sure that people didn't get more than $3,000 a year in benefits, a la the way that PPO insurance works. don't do it. The annual maximum is another one of those insurance mechanisms, this disdained across, the industry that adds complexity and confusion. Keep it simple. Offer the discounts, period. If people go above, what would have normally been an annual maximum, that's okay. You're not trying to just be insurance, okay? So avoid the annual maximums and save your admin team the complexity. Be clear on the frequency of service offerings. Okay, we've seen some practices trying to highlight the value in their programs versus, say, traditional insurance, and they'll highlight things like unlimited cleanings. Well, as I've been saying, if you're bringing in a lot of retirees into these programs, you may have people coming in more than you were thinking because they have the time and they see coming into your office as a social opportunity, and they're going to be there every 4 weeks enjoying a free cleaning. So be clear. If you intended it to be 2 times per year, then say it's 2 times per year. Do not use phrases like unlimited. Make it clear as to what's offered under the plan. Excluding certain codes. If there are things like full arch rehab or implants that you don't want to include in the plan from restorative discount because it really isn't what you're trying to achieve at the plan, then simply exclude it. You don't have to include anything you don't want to in these plans. The key is to have clarity. You don't want patients coming in thinking that a procedure was covered or your staff thinking it's covered. So keep it simple, keep it clear, and don't include anything in the program that you don't want to. And a lot of practices on elective codes, such as ortho and whitening, they often have lower discounts like 10%. Again, this makes sense if I'm offering you a prevention plan and the goal is to stay healthy. I might offer 20% discount on those, but for those things that are more fun to do, more elective, I'm going to lower the discount, maybe more 10. Willing to give you a discount for your loyalty, but that's not necessarily what I was most primarily trying to achieve with the plan. Then finally, how do these programs combine with other programs in your office, like patient financing and warranty programs? Membership plans should be thought of just like PPO. Patients pay you their monthly premium and they enjoy a lower price. That's essentially all it is. If you're offering patient financing such as Cherry or Care Credit, they can participate in that as well. If you're offering a warranty program, they can participate in that as well. They can and they should be able to enjoy all of these benefits. This is not a mutually exclusive situation. We've really now hit most of the core elements of the plan itself. We want to take a moment to talk specifically about new patients. Our advice at Tuatera, our approach on these plans, is counter to what you might see in the market. We favor positioning these membership plans really as a vehicle for retaining your current older patients as opposed to attracting new patients in most cases. Okay, this might change as industry trends and demographics continue to evolve. So we're all hopeful that membership plans will become a vehicle to uncouple the PPO industry that we're in today. As people switch jobs more often, the gig economy increases, we might see that. But right now where we are today is most people get insurance from their work, and these plans are directed at the non-insured. As we went through pretty extensively here in this video, these membership plans are attracting retirees. So we think it makes sense for most practice owners to lean into that and think about these plans as a way to retain patients as they retire and lose those benefits. And maybe they've been quote unquote trained over the years that they can only perform things that are covered by insurance. You can insert a membership plan to continue to facilitate that relationship for them, as opposed to them maybe being someone else's new patient. Now, if attracting new patient retirees is your goal, then absolutely a membership plan should be a critical vehicle in attracting a new patient. Okay, but think about the working age adult versus the retirees as you're thinking about this. Another thing that we think is important, regardless of how you're positioning this plan for working age adults or retirees, we do not think it is best practice to allow patients to sign up online. You can advertise them online, and you should. You should be crystal clear with the price and the benefits, but we believe that you should only allow the sign-ups in your office for new patients. That way you can ensure that new patients are a good fit before they become members. Another, awkward situation could be if Johnny signs up for your plan online, comes into the office, and then, is not a good fit, and you want to dismiss him. Well, now we have to work through a refund issue and with the software company, and that's probably a bad Google review just waiting to happen. And although those are a fact of life, we'd like to minimize those. So we believe that new patients should have to come into your office and meet with the doctor and establish they're a good fit for the practice before they can sign up for your membership plan. As part of that philosophy, we think the fine print of your plan should be very clear on the CDT codes that it includes. We do not believe that the D0150 or the comprehensive exam should be part of those plans. The exams that are offered under the plans we think should be the more limited exams that you do with recurring patients, not the comprehensive. Again, this is for a prevention plan. For a discount plan, you might do that a little differently. Continue with new patients. We recommend, and we'll show you an example here, that new patients should pay for their comprehensive exam in addition to paying to enroll in a prevention plan. So as I just said, we don't believe that the comprehensive exam should be included in your monthly plan. And we spoke earlier about how practice owners are weary that people might sign up, get a comprehensive first visit, and then never come back to the practice, only pay once. This approach that we're recommending allows the practice to better recoup some of that upfront costs, and it ensures that patients sign up for the right plan. So on the previous slide, we talked about what if Johnny isn't a good fit for your practice at all, and now he's already a member and we have to unwind that. Another issue that could happen is that Johnny doesn't know he's got periodontal disease, and he signs up for the Prophy plan, and he only came in because he thought he could pay $49 a month, but after the doctor exam, the doctor concludes he's not right for the Prophy plan. Another awkward situation ensues. Johnny might have made a different decision. We probably have another bad Google review coming. So putting it all together for us might look something like this, where patients are advised that they would need to come in first for a comprehensive doctor exam. This may change how you handle new patients. So if you've been a client of Tuatera, you've probably heard from us that we think the best first appointments for new patients include both time with the doctors and hygiene. We know that can be difficult. But the doctor would be first in this case, so that the patient can be evaluated for a good fit in total and then be enrolled into the proper plan. So at the end of the patient's first visit, they might owe, say, $199 for that comprehensive new patient exam. And then depending on the plan they were enrolled in, it's either $49 a month for the prevention plan or $79 for the perio plan, as an example. So maybe their first appointment is $250. That's still likely a significant discount to paying your total UCR, and then they'll continue to enjoy discount going forward. It's a little bit of a hybrid method between annual pricing and monthly pricing at the start, and a way to nuance the new patients different from those that are, say, re-enrolling, and all that can be handled online. Now, another major area is how to deal with provider compensation in these plans. And most of what you'll see on this slide, if not all, comes from real life examples that we've had in our client base. Now, it's our belief that like any PPO plans that you're in network with, you should set up a fee schedule in your practice management software with your membership plan rates. Even though your membership plan rates might simply be 20% off of your UCR, from what we understand with how practice management software works and how it interacts with some of the analytic tools that are out on the market, the best way to do this is to have a separate fee schedule to post your production against. If not, there could be cases where you won't be able to track your plan, your production in your practice management software, that it'll be a little harder to pull that out, and it'd be a little easier if you had set up a separate fee schedule. Once you do that, production can be walked out under the membership plan, just like it would be walked out under a PPO. And with the write-offs or the discounts already baked in, you would get your adjusted production under that program, same as you would Delta. That's at least how we understand it. And that facilitates simply the doctors and hygienists that are paid a percentage of adjusted or net production should continue to be paid that. And one other thing, if you've been a client to Atera, you probably know that we do not believe that associate doctors or hygienists should be compensated based on collections, but they should always be compensated on adjusted production. So if you're paying your providers on collections, we recommend you change that to percentage of adjusted production. Then simply, just like it's a PPO program, you have a fee schedule, you walk it out under that fee schedule, the providers get paid a percentage of production. It doesn't matter when you collect the money. You might be a little upside down or have to float it at the front of a patient relationship, but then the patient starts paying the practice back with no production associated with it, and it levels out. Absolutely do not ask providers to see membership plan patients and not pay them. We've seen that before, and that'll just lead to providers that do not want to see membership plan patients. A couple more things in this area. Be careful if your plan calls for unlimited X-rays or panos or other items, because what can happen is your team can misinterpret that. So if you decide from a marketing standpoint that you want to tell patients that your plan calls for unlimited X-rays, you need to be clear with your team what that means. Okay? You need to be clear that if somebody is taking 2 X-rays per year instead of the 1 that you're expecting, that there's clear and documented reasons as to why they did that in case they are audited. You might also consider your walkout procedures and if there is a change needed. In contrast to cash paying patients or even PPO patients, there's going to be no payer here, meaning there's going to be no claim that is submitted. And so staff does have the easier ability here to pump up production with procedures that never happened or procedures that happened that shouldn't have happened, okay? So if you're really only expecting team members to take panos when XYZ conditions are present, you need to make that clear. Or you could have Sally team member taking a pano on every single patient because it bumps up her production. And then Sally knows potentially that no one is looking at the procedures when it's walked out, and so no one notices that there's a pano on every patient until she's paid thousands of dollars too much in income. So we've seen some practices implement a change in their walkout procedures so that another set of eyes confirms that those procedures were needed, performed, and follows the expectations set by the doctor owner. But hopefully, if you follow those recommendations, while it has little quirks here, you'll see that compensating your team members under a membership plan, for all intents and purposes, is very, very similar to a PPO plan. And you'll keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as well when you're setting those discounts. So your team members also feel the hit. Your doctors, when they're working in a PPO environment and there's steep discounts there. So it's another reason not to use steep discounts on your membership plan. Now, we said at the start of this presentation that there's some timing things that you want to consider in a membership plan. We'll talk through those now as we conclude this video. We believe that September is a really good time each year to update your plan ahead of open enrollment. September, a lot of people call it Sucktember because schedules tend to be softer, so you might have some time in your day to take a look at this plan and talk to your office manager and other team members about changes you might want to see. But open enrollment's a great time because even though patients can join your plan at any time, open enrollment is the one time a year where essentially 100% of your patients could be making a purchase decision or thinking about their dental coverage. If I have a full-time job and maybe I'm about to participate in my employer's open enrollment process, maybe I'm thinking about retirement, maybe I don't have employer coverage and I need to think about a government plan. Letting me know how I could utilize your plan around open enrollment would be very beneficial. One of the mistakes that we believe we see practice owners make when it comes to thinking about PPO participation and membership plans is they think about a timeline that makes sense for them as the owners and not as the patients. So when you communicate outside of open enrollment, you are communicating at a time that likely makes sense for you, but not patients. In contrast, most adults are used to thinking about their health insurance and their dental insurance one time a year. You have their attention during this time that you otherwise do not have any other time of the year, so take advantage of it. Open enrollment is generally from October 15th to January 15th. Again, so you have some time in September. Analyze your plan and how it's going and get some updates in place before open enrollment. If you're not using internal marketing to email your patients, we highly recommend you do that anyway, and you establish a cadence such as once a quarter perhaps, where patients are hearing about what's happening in your practice. That creates a good opportunity for you to send a timely email or letter. Depending on, again, these are retirees, so you might want to send a letter as well. But sending a note out to your patients, letting them know about your plan each year. And you should do that even if you don't make changes to your plan, because remember, the patients might have things happening on their side, and they're thinking about, oh my gosh, I just retired, I have to learn about open enrollment. That is where you need to send them a timely communication that you could be the solution. Even if you don't have much innovation this year to announce in your program, don't take that for granted. Remind your patients at least once a year in September about your plan. We've covered a lot of ground here in this video now, so we'll bring it home now with what to do next with all of this information. As we went through, membership plan could be a really strategic vehicle for your practice. You should go through an exercise of thinking about your brand position, the ideal plan, patient. Again, is that the same as your normal ideal patient, or is it a little different? The percentage of patients that you want in this plan. You should think about what your goals are for this plan if you haven't done that. You should reference the material in here to think about your brand position and create a program that aligns. I would recommend that you analyze your current membership plan demographics to determine where you are and determine how many people you have in the plan. What are the age of those patients? Have they been with you a while? Are they coming from certain zip codes? And comparing that to your current patient base. Perhaps you look like some of the practices that we showed you earlier. Perhaps you don't. But really establishing if your membership plan is attracting a different patient than the rest of your practice would be critical to knowing what steps to make. And you could leverage your data analytics software such as Dental Intel, Practice by Numbers, or Jarvis to help you with that. It can be very difficult to pull this information if you don't have those programs. So if you don't, this could be the time to consider implementing some data analytics in your practice. We spent a lot of time talking about discounts, both the inherent discount and the restorative discount versus UCR. I would take a look at those. So as you think about UCR changes you might implement, say as effective as of January 1st, think about the value, the whole UCR value in your preventative program and the inherent discount that you want to offer and what that price should be, and compare that to where you are today, okay? When you have a monthly based plan, you can make some significant changes without it hurting patient's wallet that much. You know, you can go from $39 to maybe $49, and it's only $10 a month. But for you, it's a 20 to 25% price increase, okay? So you can think about, you might have some opportunities to increase the price on the practice a really significant amount from a percentage standpoint, but still keep it very attractive for the patients, but you'd want to analyze where you are. So you would update your goals, refine your plan terms, again, be clear about what you're trying to do here, clear on your discounts and UCR, and then we really, again, recommend reaching out to your patients before open enrollment. You probably want to bring your team members into this process as well and review the plan designs, plan updates that you're thinking with a couple of key team members. We think it's important that all of your team members can really speak to your plan so that you can do a lot of education or soft selling in the office. So that's something else you can do here in September as well in preparation for emailing your patients. We covered a lot of information in today's video. I hope that whether you are looking to start a plan for the first time or analyze an existing plan, you found some value. I appreciate your time. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.